What's up, everybody? Mighty Mom here once again. Mighty Mom here. I know this is going to be totally different than what you're used to on my YouTube channel. I know normally I do videos with other people, but this week I just decided just to do something that maybe some of you all can relate to. I know a lot of my subscribers, supporters, people that I see out in the street, fans, family, always, just ask me questions and always DM me and just ask me for advice. So I thought I would take this opportunity just to talk about how it was being a single mom, a mother of a biracial son as a single mom, and just raising my children. So yeah, here we go. Hope you enjoy it. So one thing that I wanted to touch on is how it was being a single mom without my mother's support, raising not only a child by myself, but a biracial child who, this was in 1993, so it wasn't as bad as, like they say back in the olden days or back in the day, but I mean, it still wasn't as accepted as it is today. But I and Mighty Duck's, I'm just gonna say it, I'm not gonna say it. Anyway, his donor, we were together for, I'm gonna say, probably 2 years before, I got pregnant with Duck, and, that was that. We had a great relationship, all of that fun and good stuff. We lived together. Then I got pregnant, and everything was still great. I mean, we did everything together. We laughed, everything. Nothing would have told me that we would end up separated, because we weren't married. We were almost gonna get married. But anyway, so I get pregnant, go in labor, go in the hospital. The night after I had Duck, I had a cesarean, and with the cesarean back then, you had to stay in the hospital for 3 days before you could go home, because, a cesarean is when they cut you. So that night at the hospital after I had my son, he decided that all his boys wanted to hang out one last time before, I come home with the baby and he's not able to go out. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. My naive self had no idea what was really going on. So he did that. And long story short, I didn't find out till about 6 months later what really happened. But he was seeing someone else, and he actually went and spent the night with her that night. So that was that. So anyway, when Duck was like 6 months old, I just started seeing, things just changing in him. And Duck has an older sister. She would come over on the weekends, and the donor was really, and I'm saying donor because I'm gonna say sperm donor, because he ended up being just that. But he was, just everything just changed. Everything aggravated him. You know how you may not like somebody, and the least little thing they do, it just aggravates you, it gets on your nerves, or you just can't even stand to be around that person. Well, that's how he was becoming. So come to find out, you know, he was messing with this lady, and he went and, like I said, you know, stayed with her the night that I had Duck in the hospital. So we were living together in this duplex apartment, and the house that we were living in, it was an older house, which I loved it, but it was an older house, and we were both working, and the door, we didn't have, you could lock the door on the inside with a key, but there was another lock right below it that when they painted the door, they painted the lock. And so we could never lock that door. And I would always try, me and him both, we would always try to just lock it from the inside just for extra security. Well, one night he had me up all night, stupid me, looking for him out of the blinds. My Duck is sleeping. I had to go to work the next day. So I prayed to God and I said, Lord, if this is your sign, if this is you telling me that I don't need him in my life, Lord, I just pray that this lock, that I can lock him out, because neither one of us had a key to the lock, you know, because we didn't have to, we didn't need it. Even the landlord didn't even have a key to the lock because it didn't lock. It had been stuck for years. And y'all, I went over and I pulled up on that door and I turned the lock. And when I tell you that lock locked just that easily, after saying my prayer to God, that was my confirmation. I never questioned God again. I said, you know what, Lord, this is it. I got me a box and I put everything he had in that box. And yes, it fit because majority of the stuff I paid for. And I put it on the porch that night. And I called him and I said, you need to come get your stuff. Well, I told the landlord, you know, I need the locks changed and everything. So, you know, that was that. So being a single mother of one child, it was definitely a struggle at times. I was not rich. I was barely making, I want to say I was making $15 an hour. The daycare that Duck was in, luckily, her name is Sally. I love you, Sally. She watched all 3 of my children, y'all. But she had a van. Her daycare was in her home, and she would come and pick up Duck at, I want to say at 6 in the morning or 6:30, bring him home at 7 in the evening. So that worked perfect for me because I had to be at work at 8, got off at 5, caught the bus, got home about 6. You know how that is, riding the bus home. But so everything, you know, there worked out, and daycare at that time was $60 a week. So was not on food stamps, not on welfare. I did get on welfare. I'm gonna tell y'all, this prejudiced lady who I worked for at this company that's gone out of business now, but she fired me. Once she found out that I had a biracial son, she made my job a living hell. She really did. And like I say, I was on the bus, so you know, I'm not wearing my heels on the bus. I had to go all the way from Grant Park, if you're from Georgia, all the way to sometimes the airport Marriott, the airport Hilton I worked at. I worked out by Lenox Square, so we're talking about at least an hour travel time to my job. So I would wear my flats or my tennis shoes. So she wrote me up for wearing my tennis shoes in the business center. And I said, okay, so do you want me to put my heels on before I come through the door? Because I was the supervisor. I unlocked the door, I opened, I closed. So I'm like, what? She was like, yeah, I heard that somebody reported that you were wearing tennis shoes in the business center. That's just not permitted. And I'm like, okay, but I was changing my shoes. You know, sometimes I would come in and there may have been a customer waiting. So I'm just gonna tell the customer, hold on, let me put my shoes on. Of course not, that's not good customer service. So anyway, nonetheless, she fired me. And so anyway, I didn't have a job and I had to get on welfare. Y'all, I was on welfare literally not even a month. I got one check from welfare. I started working for the state of Georgia December, y'all. December the 30th. I think it was right before a holiday for New Year's Eve. And that was that. Do you know that welfare back then, I think it was $303 or $313 or something. And they made me pay that money back because I found a job within that month of receiving a check. So I was only on welfare for 30 days. And the food stamps was $10 a month, y'all. So finally I just stopped going. I'm like, that's not even worth, because back then, y'all, they didn't have an EBT card. They had a voucher you had to go and exchange, and they give you a paper that you tear off like money. Anyway, so yeah, so it was definitely a struggle with no car, with just a job, you know, but we made it. We made ends meet, and I don't regret it, not one bit. And then you just started looking up. So, but Duck, like I say, was 6 months old. So that was that, and it was truly a blessing, y'all. When I got him out of my life, I mean, doors just started opening. Like my dad, out of the blue, called me with a car. I was on MARTA. Neither one of us had a car. Duck was a baby. I was taking him to his doctor's appointments. We would, wherever we went, we were on the bus unless somebody gave us a ride. And again, I was 21 years old, you know, still young. I went to a technical college, so I had my little certificate. At that time, I was a business center administrator. So, you know, doing pretty good. But now I'm a single mom, raising this baby, where my mom was not speaking to me because I had a biracial baby. My grandmother was, and that's all that mattered to me. And so that was that. You know, I got me a car. Things were just looking up. Duck he was turning 3, well, 2, I'd say 2 years old. And that's where I met Mighty Dad. And so he's been in our life since Duck was 3 years old. And I remember we were riding in the car one day, and Duck, just out of the blue, he would always call him Ernest, you know, and just out of the blue, we were going somewhere, and Duck just said, Daddy. And I looked, and Ernest looked at me. He said, what? He said, can I call you Daddy? And he was like, of course you can. And I mean, I was like, wow. So anyway, Duck was 3 years old, you know, when he met Ernest, and Ernest has been in our life ever since. And so that's that. Let's see, I don't want this video to be too long and boring. I hope y'all are not bored. But something else I wanted to talk about was how when I decided to, you know, date black guys. And I dated 2 white guys, y'all, when I was in, well, elementary school. That wasn't nothing. But when I was in middle school, I liked this little white dude. But, you know, I went to a majority black school. So not to say that that's the reason that I dated black guys. I mean, it's just the neighborhood that I grew up in. It was mixed, you know. But anyway, just growing up, my dad lived in Tennessee. He was in prison for majority of my life, and we would keep in touch by writing letters to each other. And my mom, you know, he would call every once in a while my grandmother's house, because, you know, my grandmother raised me. But when I was 17 years old, I moved out because my mom, you know, found out that I was dating black guys and just gave me living hell. So luckily my high school was across the street from these studio apartments that my church owned. And so that it was just gonna work out. So I moved out when I was a senior in high school, and have been moved out and on my own ever since. So I'm very, you know, independent. Don't ask nobody for nothing. Never had a grandmother to my children that I could say, hey, can you know, you keep my kids, or hey, we're gonna drop them off for the summer. None of that. So my kids are my world. They're always with me. That's why it's gonna be so hard for me, and I'm about to tear up now. so hard for me just to have Arnesia out of the house, because literally Mighty Dad and I have had children ever since we were together. Like it's never just been he and I, you know. But anyway, so that's gonna be definitely another chapter in my life that I'm gonna have to get used to, and I pray to God that he gives me the strength, which I know he will. But you know, that's just gonna be something that's really gonna be a challenge in my life, because my children are my world, as you know, probably seeing my videos. I love for them to be around. But getting back to my dad, as far as my mom, like I was brushing her hair one time when I was in middle school, and we were watching TV and something came on with Martin Luther King, and I was like, man, I wonder how the world would be if he was still alive. And I was just brushing her hair. She turned around and grabbed that brush from me, and she said, I don't ever want to hear you say that. What do you mean? It wouldn't be no difference. And y'all, I'm standing there like, what did I say wrong? Like, I was lost for words. Like, I'm standing there like, what just happened? She yanked the brush and I couldn't brush her hair anymore. I mean, that night, I had no idea. And I kept saying, what's wrong? What did I say wrong? And she said, don't you ever say that, you know. But my mom has come a long way. But my daddy, okay, y'all, I don't want this video to be too long, so I have like 3 minutes. But my dad grew up in Turtletown, Tennessee, which there were no black people up until like 91, 93 to somewhere up in there. So he, hearing that his only daughter was dating black guys, oh, he had a fit. He was like, I better not catch her, and I better not. Now, you're in prison, but what you gonna do? But I was still terrified of my dad. But anyway, so he got out, and here I am, a single mom. Remember, I told you that when I locked that door, doors just started opening. Literally, one door closed and tons of other ones open. That's how God works, y'all. But yeah, so I didn't have anybody to keep my kids, so I had to take my son, Duck. My grandmother went with me. I had my cousin, one of my best friends, to go with me. My aunt went with me to meet my dad to get this car. And here I have this little baby. So I told, at that time, my best friend moved in to help me with the bills. And I told her, I said, here, just, you know, you hold Duck and act like he's yours. So we went in there. My dad played with Duck. Duck, again, was probably 8 months, maybe. He wasn't a year old yet. And my dad was like, oh, he is such a cute fella. Look at his pretty skin tone and blah, blah, blah. And he said, he looked at me and he looked at Duck. He was like, well, Melanie, he looks like you. He sure does look like you. Isn't that something? I was like, really? You think so? He said, yeah, y'all got the same ears. I was like, yeah, you right. He sure. But y'all know Duck looks like me, especially when he was a baby. So anyway, I played it off and I was like, no, I said, that's her son, you know. So scared to tell my dad that I had a biracial son. But nonetheless, as years went on and, you know, Mighty Dad and I got together, and I just got to a point to where I said, you know what? My dad hadn't been active in my life ever. So what am I to lose, you know? So I called him one day and I told him. And my dad was like, calm, cool, collected, like, oh, okay. Melody, I'm gonna talk to you later. That's fine with me. I expected that. I was like, okay, bye. And he called my uncle, who also lives in Tennessee, which is his brother-in-law. And my uncle is a preacher. And my dad talked to him and said, I just want you to know that, you know, Melody has a black baby. And he said, my uncle said, okay, well, he's no family to me. And, you know, whatever words exchanged between them two, you know, he got off the phone. So apparently, y'all, this is how my God works. My uncle, remember, is a preacher. whatever he prayed that night. And let me tell y'all something that I just learned. If you have a dream and you wake up the next morning and you can't remember the dream, it was just a dream. If you dream and you wake up and you can remember that dream just as plain as day, that's a message, okay? So I just learned that. Anyway, so lesson learned. So anyway, so whatever my uncle dreamed that night before, he got up the next day and called my dad and said, Larry, I just want you to know that that's my nephew. And my uncle's life changed instantly. He started going over to, I don't know if it was Ghana or Africa or some country where there were Africans. His best friend now is black, y'all. He started doing mission trips. And I say that because Desmond is such a blessing, y'all. Children are blessings anyway, but my son, Mighty Duck, is such a blessing that those two men, my uncle and my dad, who probably, I don't know where they would be today, their thinking process about black people, I don't know. But all I do know is my son, Mighty Duck, changed their lives for the best. My dad loves Ernest. He loves all three of my children, y'all. My mom does now. My mom came around. You know, we started back speaking. So children are such a blessing, y'all. You know, I mean, I know they get on your last nerves. I'm talking about every last bit of your nerves sometimes. You just want to strangle them. But at the end of the day, they're truly blessings, y'all. And so that's my story time, y'all. I hope that this has been, if nothing else, encouraging for you all. If you're going through this, I don't even know. I know there's some prejudiced people in this world nowadays, y'all. But if you're dealing with, you know, feeling alone because of the person that you chose to be with, I pray that this video has encouraged you, has lifted your spirits. I pray it wasn't boring to you all. So maybe we can do more story times. And Coco is about to knock my light off. Kind of sit down somewhere now. Okay, excuse me. Excuse me. So anyway, I hope that you all enjoyed this video. I really enjoyed it. Telling you all just a part of Mighty Mom and my upcoming and how blessed I am to be here today and being able to be on YouTube and have you all to subscribe to my channel. So if you enjoyed it, I want you to comment below. I want you to share this video. I want you to pray for this world that we live in, that it's gonna get better, y'all. But until then, peace, love, and happiness.